When I recently found out exactly how book publishers work, all I could think about was that an unknown author trying to chase a publisher was essentially the same trap as an unknown musician trying to chase a record label. Essentially, no built in audience, no big following, no interest. See, music labels long ago stopped developing musicians and artists. It turns out that book publishers really don't develop authors. At least that's not what I've seen. Now, reaching out there to you, are you an author? Have you written a book, published it with a big one, or are you self-published? Or are you writing your book right now and wondering what to do next? Are you on that journey? Have you got just ideas about a book you want to write? Or maybe you're just someone who's interested in books in general because you love reading them and just taking in a little sneak peek behind the curtain on what book publishing takes these days. Well, I think that this series, I'm going to call it, is going to be for you. So strap on in. Here we go. Now, I'm going to go back to music first because, well, duh, I'm a musician. That's my longest art form. My first love was the drums, and I've been a professional musician for many, many years. And years ago, when I was in the more of the original music world, writing, recording, touring, etc., I had especially one band that was getting very close to what I would consider making it, whatever that means, as a band. And we had label interest. Turns out that the label interest was really only interested in stealing some of the ideas we were doing and implementing them on some of their other artists that were currently signed. Well, that's just the way it goes sometimes. But I learned a lot about the music industry back then and as far as what labels are looking for. And that has only continued to grow in the fact that if you're in a band these days, you really need to have a following, a big TikTok audience, YouTube audience. You need to have your own audience basically when you come in. Otherwise, the label is not going to jump on. And as a now first time author, what I'm learning is that without the big platform, without the big Substack following or the big Instagram following or whatever the case may be, most book publishers aren't going to take a roll of the dice at an unknown author who's never literally put a book out there in the world before. And so here's where I am. I have a book. I've been working very hard for many years now on my book. I actually started writing this book in 2021 of all things. So this book is heavily inspired by the cancer journey I went on between 2017 into early 2018. It was massive. It was life-threatening at many times. It was big and scary and beautiful all at the same time. It was the biggest challenge I had ever faced in my life and led to the biggest amount of growth that I've ever been fortunate to have throughout. So it was an experience that changed my life incredibly and inspired me to do some very cool things. You know, in 2019, I actually wrote and performed a one-man show, which I got a few performances out there in the world. And then I did the first of two TEDx talks that I was invited to do. And then the world shut down in 2020. So everything got tabled, including my one-man show. And I figured I'd bring that back some point in the future. But in the meantime, while there wasn't much to do out there in the performing space, I just decided that it was time to really dig in and write the book. And I knew I wanted to write a book about my cancer story, but I knew that there was so much more. I mean, there's the philosophy around how I approached cancer and went through it, but there's also the bigger through line of how the cancer sort of continued this trajectory of a certain way of opening up in my life and really tapping into my greatness. And I'm not being vague on purpose here, but I am a little bit because I want to tell you more about the book as we go along, just not yet. So we have this through line, and I started writing, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I just literally did not edit myself. I got into a daily writing habit, and I wrote for 3 years. Every single day, a little bit every single day, whatever would come to mind, no editing whatsoever, just getting the words on the page. Now, I got this book done by, I don't know, it was sort of spring of 2024. And at that point, I had about 185,000 words in my memoir. Now, everything I've learned these days about what a memoir is supposed to be, well, most of them tend to be about 80,000, maybe to 100,000 words. There are a few that have stretched to 110 or 120, but they've got to be really great to go that long. That's not typically what you're going to see. And that's especially what a book publisher is not going to want to take on. So into the book I go. 2024, I'm finished. I know immediately right away that I want to start editing the book because obviously it's way too long, and I just wrote the first draft freestyle without really editing. And so before I even shopped the book, I wanted to take one full pass myself and really start cleaning things up. And that's when I started doing that. I spent, I would say, just under a year doing the edit. And what I would do is I would write through things that felt like they were totally out of left field and didn't serve the through line of the memoir. I would move completely out to another area for use somewhere else, another book, another place, another time. And for the stuff that stayed, I just cleaned up the writing, trimmed where I could, reshaped a little bit. And it was at that point that I did invite some AI in. Now, I did not invite AI in to do any writing for me. I want to be very clear and transparent about that, but also transparent about the fact that I did realize that I could save some time in the copy editing place and do some of that myself. So after I did a few paragraphs, I would put that in and then have it basically reviewed for the grammar, punctuation, and spelling. And then I would make sure everything looked good before I'd move on to the next section, and I'd keep going. And like I said, it took me about a year to get to that point. When I finished the what I would call the second draft, I knew it was time to pursue publishing. And in my mind, I thought, okay, I really want to get with a real publisher. I think it would be great. Just like back in the day as a musician, if you're on a real label, you just get a lot more respect from the industry. You get tour support. You get all kinds of things. I don't know what those things are. I mean, a lot of bands get on labels and they still end up, broke and breaking up and things like that. So I didn't think it was the be all end all, but I thought at least this would be a more prestigious way to approach it, especially because I'd like to get my book out and make it as big as I can, and then turn that into the speaking career that I've been pursuing so I can get on the biggest stages all over the world and share this message of love and positivity and heart opening and the three-step basically process that I call Embrace Love Free, which is my big lesson and the subject matter of my one-man show and my TED Talks and things like that. So here's what happened. I decided I wanted to do a publisher, and I started working on my book proposal, figuring I knew I needed a proposal to propose to a publisher. But then, like, some of the questions that come up, and there's no answers. I'm just kind of sort of rapid fire. But like, what does a book publisher even do? I'm like, I figured it would just get your books maybe on Amazon or on the shelves at Barnes and Noble or whatever few bookstores still remain. But how do you get to a book publisher? Well, I learned that you need an agent just to get in the door. And now, what happens if a publisher says yes after the agent said yes and then shopped you? What happens now? Well, I started learning a lot of things. Now to share a few here, but number one, they take full control, cover design, editorial, things like that. Number two, they schedule you to be placed once you're now in their kind of queue, if you will, scheduled by quarters. And a book that comes out, or a book that's being submitted now and being accepted now, you're looking at 12 months to 18 months before that book is released because they release them based on the quarter. Now, I'm very blessed and grateful that I've been able to talk to some professionals in this field, a very well-known author speaker who gave me his time, a book agent who's part of my men's group who gave me a lot of his insight and expertise and told me some very real truths. And that is really about book publishers wanting to see how big of a following you have and what you bring to the table so that they can basically help get to the book to the finish line and then rely back on you to sell the actual book. I thought maybe a book publisher would not just place your book, but maybe help you book a book tour or get you on some stages to do that. Well, it turns out that's not really the case, or at least from what I understand. There are obviously a lot more questions on what a book publisher even does. What are they for? Why do we need them in this day and age with all the ways that we can self-publish, especially when we're giving up so much control and financial capabilities, because when you sell the book yourself as a self-published author, obviously you make a lot more than the book publisher, that they take a large percentage. But then again, the question becomes, well, who do I sell it to if I don't have the big platform yet? Will the book publisher help me get out there in front of more people? And is it a catch-22? Do you need one before the other or vice versa? I don't even know. But here's what I do know is that with the help of my friend Paris, we designed a beautiful book proposal. It included very colorful, had my logo and photos and all the things proposal needs, but done in a wonderful package that was designed with a color palette and my sample chapters and all the chapter summaries and literally every bit that a book proposal would need, but designed in a way that was just very nice to look at and very pleasing to kind of go through, other than just your sort of plain text document. And I'm like, all right, let's start. So then the next step became querying an agent. How do you do that? Because you can't go right to a book publisher. You got to go through an agent first. And I started looking at this world of querying agents, and I started reaching out to a few, but it turns out even an agent does not want to see your book proposal in the query. They want a little letter. They want to know how many books you've sold in the past. They want to see like maybe 5 pages of the book from the beginning. And I hadn't even had an editor look at my book yet. And I knew I needed an editor to get me, past the finish line. And now I'm sending these little query letters out, never heard back from anybody. And I started to realize that this querying business is going to take a long time. And it seems like most agents, literary agents, aren't really looking for me, at least not what I represent now. And that's a bigger thing to unpack. But let's just say in the descriptions of the types of authors they were looking for and the stories they're looking for, neither my demographic nor my subject matter really was listed in their wish list, so to speak. Then I thought even deeper, and I had a very long and difficult conversation with a friend slash client who is an author and a speaker, and she gave me some really powerful feedback, and it really helped me unpack something important. Why do I have this book, and why am I trying to publish it? And I realized that this book is really a means to an end, right? I'm an author. Yes, I'll take that title on. But my goal is not to just be an author, because I'm a storyteller, I'm a speaker, I'm a performer, I'm a filmmaker, and writing is just one part of the storytelling process for me. So I realized that the book is the means to the end to get out there, to give me more credibility, to get me on bigger stages and open more doors so that I can do bigger and better speaking gigs and create the films, especially the documentaries and stuff that we're developing, because they're very on brand with the type of messaging in my book and my speaking. So realizing that, it became very clear to me that the goal was no longer to chase an agent and then a publisher and to wait, because I don't want to wait 2 to 3 potential years, even if someone says yes to me. I want to get the book out as soon as possible so that people can start absorbing the messaging in it and read it. And then I can use that to help promote the work I'm doing as a speaker and filmmaker and overall storyteller. So when that became very obvious, I had another conversation now with a person who's kind of a book shepherd, if you will, someone that I got introduced to. And learning a little bit more about the process, I learned about a type of editor I had never heard about, a developmental editor. Now, I knew of copy editing, of course, grammar, punctuation, spelling, and all the basic functions and things you need in a book. Okay, I'm short on words on what the wording is there, but the fundamentals, if you will, the mechanics. Okay, there I go. But a developmental editor is the person who will help you shape your story, to figure out where to trim, to get that through line boiled down so that the book isn't all over the place. And I'm like, okay, that's what I need. And so I started my search and I looked deep and I found a lot of really good ones out there. And then I started sending messages out, and then I ended up interviewing 3 different ones. And after back and forth for a couple weeks, I selected my developmental editor, a woman named Corbin. And she was amazing and right in alignment with what I'm doing. So I hired her and I sent her my book and I gave her about a month and I sat back. Well, she cranked it out a lot faster than that. I was surprised, but she got into it and she got committed and she got me the edited version back. So now I have that. And now the heavy work starts again, as we are now on version 3 of the book. And I'm not going to go too deep right now into what this all means, because I am turning this little book publishing thing into a series, so to speak, something that I would like to deliver to you. My goal is every 2 weeks, and kind of update you as the process of being a new self-published author. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually editing. Corbin took my book in a Word document, and then she went through and made all her comments. I mean, there's like 265 of them down the side. A lot of them had the same message, and I'll get into what that messaging is in further future episodes. But the messaging about where we need to trim, how we need to shape, what we need to move, and how we need to sort of keep bringing the story back to, and there's that word again, is through line. right? I was writing the book in sort of a hybrid fashion as a memoir, autobiography, and self-help teaching, personal development, however you want to say it. I've always kind of considered this book to be a teaching memoir. And I think it still is in certain ways because it will teach, but it needs to still read more like a memoir, and it still needs to be interesting and engaging and tell us a story without too much teaching, right? The teaching is left for the reader to absorb and turn into their own lessons. And then I can do more of that teaching element from the stage. So I got to work. I have completed the full edit on the introduction, and now I am into chapter 1. Why I'm doing this now as a series? Well, there's several reasons. Number one, I'm learning. I'm not here to teach you how to publish a book. But if you are writing a book or looking to publish a book, or think maybe one day in the future you're going to be publishing a book, then come on this journey with me, because as I go through and work on the edit, I will be sharing the things I'm learning about editing one's own book with the help of a developmental editor. And then once we get this final manuscript to the finish line, again, then I will be going to the next steps, things like getting an ISBN number, designing the cover and sleeve, putting the whole book into a design of the layout, which I have no idea how to do yet, and then figuring out how to get it onto the bookshelves of Amazon and even maybe the physical bookshelves of a Barnes and Nobles, because there are still some around, and even a few independent stores like Book Soup in Hollywood, or West Hollywood rather, on Sunset Boulevard, or the Last Bookstore in downtown Los Angeles, which is a really neat place. Go check it out if you've never been there. So I'd love to see it on some shelves as well. Also, a lot of people these days especially love audiobooks. So I definitely plan on doing an audio version and having that available too. I don't know where and what order and how this all happens. And so as I keep doing these episodes, we will be going through this together. And once I do something and I learn and I share what I'm working on, I'm hoping it will be both entertaining for you as well as educational, in that you can sort of ride this with me and learn from what I'm doing, maybe learn from my mistakes or the things I discover as I continue to share them. And we'll just kind of go on this ride together. So this is where it's going to be at. Now, this first episode, if you will, is a little bit longer than the most will be. I will be doing shorter ones, especially on the updates every couple weeks. Like I said, I'll be coming in to say what I worked on, what I learned, how things are coming. One big reason for doing it that way is kind of selfish. I mean, I will be keeping myself accountable, because it's hard to focus. It's hard to stay on track when the writing seems overwhelming. It seems like I've gotten 265 comments on a 365-page manuscript. And if you step back and look at that, it's like, whoa, how do I even begin? Where do I even start? I will freeze. And so I have employed AI once again, not again to write, but to help me organize my editing sessions. And this is where we're doing it in little pieces. And the very intelligent AI, as we will, understands the way I work. I am a diagnosed ADHD and I struggle with the overwhelm. So when I can take things and quantitate them down into bite-sized pieces, okay, I've got 15 or 30 minutes right now. What are we going to work on? And that's then the AI assistant, if you will say, okay, we're going to edit these 2 chapters. Here's the notes from Corbin, rewrite it, and let's see if it works. So this is going to help me. And we have this new technology, so I might as well use it. Again, I've prompted the AI to do no writing for me, because this is my words and it's my voice. But it will catch me when I start falling off track and going back into the telling versus showing, and not staying true to the through line that we're working on in the edit. I will be doing these. I will be sharing these. I hope you'll join me on this journey. And we're going to remember that this is a journey, not a destination, as is most of life. So please, if you don't subscribe to my page and my work yet, please do, and stay tuned. I will do my very best to stay on target and drop one of these every 2 weeks. And if you've made it this far, I thank you so much for watching and for joining me. I'm really excited because I want to get this moving and grooving, and maybe even have this book out and published before the end of 2026. It's a lofty goal, but I am quite ambitious. All I know is that I'm going to stay true and dedicated and keep things going. And we're going to get this done sooner than later. So it will be available for you to read, and I will be able to use it to help me get on those bigger stages and hopefully travel all over the world and share this message of love and positivity and the philosophy. Thank you so much. Blessings.